Hi folks, how are we all doing? I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. I hope you're able to find the love and that you're witnessing the blessings that are there in life in these difficult times. It's hard, my friends, I know. But you know, we're all in this one together. So I'm offering these devotions as my little bit of hope, doing what I can, playing my role in being part of a solution. These devotions are offered as a balm for the heart, the mind, the spirit and the soul. And the title for today's little offering is Odyssey. So I invite us just to still ourselves now together. Let's invite a loving presence to be here amongst us and to awaken from deep, deep within us all. I have lit the flame of freedom in this cup of belonging, acceptance and love. We join together in our physical separation, but united in devotion to life and to love. Help us to sing for the joy of living in all of living's mystery. And look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief cause lie all the verities and realities of your existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendour of beauty, for yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Words attributed to Kalidasa. So I'm going to begin with a short little poem actually by Tom Leonard, Odysseus. It took me so long to get back to who I am. Why was I away so long? Why was the journey so torturous? All those false masks against a backdrop narrative to do with authenticity. But now arriving back, there is still much debris to clear, the clearer to see the point from which I started. That from which I set out, confused in sundry identities at war with themselves, now to find calm on that setting out point as the final destination. Human history is littered with stories and adventures inspired by the search for treasure, for wisdom, for enlightenment. Think of the great figures of religion, Jesus, the Buddha, Muhammad, Gandhi. They all stepped out into the wild alone and they returned enlightened. Think also of the heroic figures from the great stories. They did likewise. They were called out into the unknown only to return with something new and inspiring. They stepped in the dark but came home in the light. Stories like Jason and the Argonauts, or many of the other Greek tales, of course. Pilgrim's Progress, Gulliver's Travels, The Wizard of Oz, Jack and the Beanstalk, The Lord of the Rings, the list is endless. Human history is littered with folk tales and myths which teach us so much about what life in all its potential, both for beauty and horror, is actually about. Joseph Campbell, who spent years exploring such myths, believed that these stories helped us to fully understand how each of us, at some point in our lives at least, or at many moments in our lives actually, are called out to journey forth. He identified 4 distinct stages of the journey. The first stage he named the call to adventure. This, he claimed, is caused by discontent, which draws us out of the comfort of our lives to risk something new. The second stage is a form of initiation, where the hero goes through a series of ordeals that test their mental and physical skills. The third stage is the time of revelation, the discovery of truth and treasure. And the final stage is the return home to one's community, with wisdom gained and treasure to share. Coming home in the light, if you like. But the adventures began and ended with a call. They began with a powerful call to adventure, but they also ended with an equally powerful call to return home. Just think of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz and those immortal words as she clicked her ruby slippers in the film, at least. And those immortal words, "There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home." The call to return, especially to return home, is a powerful call. This call, though, is not just about returning to a place, it's also about time, I believe, about returning to a time in life when everything was simpler and safer. Isn't that what Dorothy's call in The Wizard of Oz was about? It got a bit much in Oz. Didn't like it. And this call is a call of nostalgia. To return to the place of safety, the place of paradise, where we were cared for, where we were looked after. Nostalgia, though, is often blind and sometimes senseless, to be honest, and can be deeply painful. Because things are not quite as we remember them. They never are, you know. Now, interestingly, anybody who knows me will know I find this interesting, nostalgia is one of those words that's changed in meaning over time. Originally, nostalgia actually meant severe homesickness, which was considered as a disease, actually. Nostalgia was a disease of severe homesickness. From the German word Heimweh, home woe, home sickness. It's rooted in the ancient Greek words algos, meaning pain, grief, distress, and nostos, meaning homecoming. I wonder if the Welsh word hireth is also related to this. Nostalgia, then, is a painful homecoming. The call to return home is powerful and at times it's deeply painful. It can cause a deep, deep yearning ache in our hearts and in our souls. The physical return home can also be painful, especially if what we are returning with is seemingly not wanted. Sometimes you might be rejected on your first return home. Think of Jack and his beans in the story Jack and the Beanstalk. Yeah? Or Jesus in the Gospel accounts returning home and being rejected and almost mocked, as he said to his disciples, "Prophets are not without honour, except in their hometown and among their own kin and in their own house." Sometimes we might not be recognised when we return home. How painful can that be? We can feel like a stranger in our own home, in our own land. Think of Odysseus, who is recognised by no one when he returns home. It's only that as he begins to speak that his old, now blind dog recognises his voice, and the dog's tail begins to wag and thud with joy and love and recognition. Beautiful. Dogs love us when we return home, don't they? They get so excited, so full of love. I also remember a painful experience in my own life many, many years ago. There have been quite sudden and dramatic changes in my life. I've never been quite the same person since them, actually, and I remember over the months that ensued that I would go home for a few days and always return quite frustrated with this feeling that my family and my loved ones were not accepting me as I was. I remember going to see my minister at the time, John Midgley, and voicing this frustration. And I also remember John calmly saying to me, after listening to me going on and on with myself for quite a long time, "Danny," he said calmly, "Danny, you have gone through some quite dramatic changes. And while you have adjusted to this, it will take others some time. People are not quite sure how to be with you. They are used to you being a certain way, and it will take them some time to adjust to the new you. I remember thinking to myself how wise these words were. I've used them many times with others ever since, actually. And I also reflected a little later that perhaps I'd not changed that much after all, to be honest, because it was still all about me. Instead of me wanting them to adjust to me and to understand me, I was the one who ought to have been adjusting to them and understanding them, which I do much more now. And these days I never feel unaccepted wherever I go, and I'm gratefully received if I come to preach in my hometown. I am loved amongst my kin and welcomed in every home. I am recognised for being truly who I am. And that's the greatest acceptance one can ask for. That is acceptance. I'm going to share with you another poem that I love, actually, Art of Poetry by Georges Bourget. Louise Bourget. To look at the river made of time and water, and remember that time is another river, to know that we lose ourselves like the river, and that faces go by like the water. To feel that wakefulness is another sleep, that dreams it is not dreaming, and that the death that our flesh fears is that death every night that is called sleep. To see in the day or in the year a symbol of the days of mankind and of his years, to change the outrage of the years into a music, a rumour and a symbol. To see in death sleep, in sunset a sad gold, such is the poetry that is immortal and poor. Poetry returns like dawn and sunset. Sometimes in the evening a face looks at us from the bottom of a mirror. Art should be like that mirror that reveals our own face to us. They tell that Ulysses, tired of wonders, wept with love at the sight of his Ithaca, green and humble. Art is that Ithaca of green eternity, not of wonders. It is also like the endless river that passes and remains and is the mirror of one same inconstant Heraclitus, who is the same and is another, like the endless river. Like Joseph Campbell, Bourget recognised a common theme in all the great stories. In this poem he explores some of the great ancient Greek stories, one being Ulysses, which in the Latin translation of Odysseus, of course, they're one in the same, and his painful return to Ithaca. He also talks of the philosopher Heraclitus, who suggested that we can never return to the same river. This is because water continually flows on, and the water we step into is never quite the same, but also because we who stand in the river are not the same person either. Life will have changed us too. Like the river, our lives go on and on, ever changing. The lesson is that it's not about yearning to return to some mythical idea, but to fully experience the adventure, the beautiful journey, as the poem by Constantine Cavafy called Ithaca suggests. And this is the lesson of Homer's Odyssey, and perhaps all the great stories, because the treasure is the journey itself. If there's nothing at the end, it's given us the beautiful journey. That's Ithaca. Life is a journey, and a beautiful one at that, one in which we are constantly turning and returning again and again and again and again. It's not always easy though. There are troubles and difficulties on this beautiful journey. There will be times we will not be recognised and may not even recognise ourselves. There will be times when we will feel completely lost and won't know where to turn for sanctuary. There will be times of darkness too, but we must all journey on. In the end, of course, we return from where we came. We return from the beautiful, beautiful Odyssey. We step out into the darkness for the final time, and we return into the light. I'm going to end this little reflection with a following. Is it a poem? Is it a prayer? Well, maybe listen to these words prayerfully. It's called Prayer for Travellers by Angela Herrera. Let's listen prayerfully. There is a prayer for all the travellers, for the ones who start out in beauty, who fall from grace, who step gingerly looking for the way back, and for those who are born into the margins, who travel from one liminal space to another, crossing boundaries in search of centre. This is a prayer for the ones whose births are passing from darkness to darkness, who all their lives are drawn toward the light and keep moving, and for those whose journeys are a winding road that begins and ends in the same place, though only when the journey is completed do they finally know where they are. For all the travellers, young and old, aching and joyful, weary and full of life, the ones who are here and the ones who are not here, the ones who are like you, and they're all like you, and the ones who are different, for in some ways we each travel alone. This is a prayer for travelling mercies and sure-footedness, for clear vision, for bread, for your body and spirit, for water, for your safe arrival, and for everyone you see along the way. Amen. So I'm going to end this devotion with some final words of blessing. We need to bless more. We can all bless, and we bless by giving our whole hearts to life. So let's begin by blessing today. Let's begin by giving our whole hearts to life. Some final words of blessing. May the Eternal bless you and protect you. May the Eternal smile on you and favour you. May the Eternal befriend you and prosper you. And may we carry the song of the Eternal with us, and may we do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. Go in love, my friends. Journey on and return. Amen.